You're sitting across from someone you just met. They're saying all the right things. They laugh at the exact moment you expected. They lean in when you share something personal. And somewhere in your chest, something tightens, not panic, not fear, just a quiet signal, a frequency you can't quite name. You ignore it. You've been trained to ignore it. 3 months later, you're untangling yourself from someone who left you questioning your own memory. And the only thing louder than the damage is that first signal. The one you heard in the first 5 minutes. The one you were taught to call paranoia. You've been lied to about toxic people. The most dangerous ones don't walk around with obvious red flags. They utilize sophisticated camouflage that fools even the smartest, most experienced people every single day. Harvard research reveals a terrifying truth the average person wastes 5 years of their life in toxic relationships they could have identified in the first 60 seconds of meeting. These individuals aren't just annoying, they are systematically dismantling your confidence, draining your energy, and rewiring your reality before they even put on their mask. You might think you're just dealing with someone having a bad day, but in reality, you are being targeted by a psychological predator who sees your empathy as a weakness and your kindness as an invitation to exploit. To protect your peace, you need a psychological radar system that can detect the 3 most dangerous personality types, the Dark Triad, before they can penetrate your life. You've probably been told you're too sensitive, that you overthink first impressions, that you should give people more chances. And maybe you have. Maybe you've given so many chances that you started to believe the problem wasn't them. It was you. Your radar. Your instinct. The thing that whispered something's off before you even shook their hand. But here's what no one tells you. That instinct isn't broken. It's not defective. It's not a flaw in your wiring. It's a feature. A highly specialized one. And the reason it feels like a curse is because you're using it in a world that punishes early detection. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone and felt an immediate pull to explain yourself? To prove you're reasonable, thoughtful, not judgmental? Even though they haven't accused you of anything yet, that urge isn't random. It's your nervous system responding to micro signals your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. Micro expressions that don't match the words. Timing that's slightly off. A conversational rhythm that feels rehearsed. Your body is already running a background scan, and it's finding inconsistencies. Most people think charm is charm. That warmth is warmth. That interest is interest. But if you've been burned before, you've learned something most people never notice. There's a difference between someone who's interested in you and someone who's interested in how you see them. One is reciprocal. The other is extractive. One asks questions to understand. The other asks questions to inventory. And your nervous system can detect that difference in the first 60 seconds. Not because you're paranoid, but because you have what researchers call Vantage Sensitivity, a heightened responsiveness to environmental cues that most people filter out as noise. This trait didn't develop to make you anxious. It developed because, evolutionarily, groups needed people who could detect threats before they became visible. The person who noticed when a stranger's story didn't add up. When someone's generosity had an edge of performance. When the new member of the group mirrored too perfectly, agreed too quickly, adapted too smoothly. These weren't signs of social skill. They were signs of camouflage. And someone in the group had to notice. That someone was you. Not the loudest person. Not the leader. But the one who felt the dissonance first. The one whose stomach dropped when everyone else was still smiling. Here's the problem. In modern social settings, that early detection system gets reframed as a character flaw. You're told you're cynical, guarded, unfair, that you're not giving people a real chance. So you override the signal. You rationalize it. You tell yourself you're being too judgmental, too quick to judge, too influenced by past experiences. And you push through the discomfort. You silence the alarm. And 3 months later, you're sitting in the wreckage, wondering why you didn't listen to yourself. But you did listen. You just weren't given permission to act on what you heard. Let's talk about what you're actually detecting. There's a cluster of personality patterns researchers call the Dark Triad. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Not clinical diagnosis, just observable behavioral patterns. What links them is a specific social strategy. These individuals don't build connection. They simulate it. They don't feel reciprocity. They calculate it. And they don't see relationships as mutual. They see them as transactional, which means every early interaction is a test, not of compatibility, but of compliance. They're not asking, do we connect? They're asking, Will this person override their own instincts to keep me comfortable? And here's what your nervous system picks up on. The excessive agreement, the way they mirror your energy without adding their own, the way they ask probing questions but deflect when you ask the same, the slight pressure to move faster than feels natural, the boundary test disguised as a joke, the story that positions them as the perpetual victim of other people's irrationality. These aren't red flags you're supposed to see. They're frequency shifts you're supposed to feel. And if you have Vantage Sensitivity, you feel them immediately. But you've been socialized to interpret that feeling as your own dysfunction. Think of it this way. Imagine your nervous system as a radio receiver. Most people are tuned to a narrow bandwidth. They pick up the obvious signals, the loud conflicts, the clear violations. But you're tuned to a wider spectrum. You pick up the static between words, the slight delay before someone answers, the mismatch between their face and their tone. You don't just hear what people say. You hear what they're not saying. And in the first few minutes of meeting someone, you're already detecting whether their transmission is clean or distorted, whether the signal matches the source, or whether someone is broadcasting one thing and leaking another. Traditional advice doesn't work for you because it's designed for people operating on a narrower bandwidth. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Assumes your doubt is premature. But your doubt isn't premature. It's early. There's a difference. Don't judge a book by its cover. Assumes the cover is irrelevant. But for you, the cover is data. The way someone introduces themselves, the stories they choose to tell, the speed at which they try to establish intimacy. These aren't superficial details. They're behavioral signatures, and your system is built to read them. So what do you do with this? How do you trust a system you've been taught to suppress? You don't start by trusting it. You start by testing it. Create a sensory audit. For the next week, after every new interaction, sit quietly and notice what you felt in the first 5 minutes. Not what you thought, what you felt. Tightness in your chest. A slight pull to prove yourself. An urge to explain or over-clarify. A subtle sense that you're being scanned rather than seen. Write it down. Don't analyze it yet. Just document it. You're not trying to judge people. You're trying to understand your own detection patterns, what you're noticing, and what percentage of the time that early signal proves accurate. Second protocol, build a permission structure. Most people with Vantage Sensitivity don't struggle to detect inconsistency. They struggle to act on it because acting on it feels cruel, unfair, judgmental. So instead of waiting for certainty, give yourself permission to delay. You don't need to cut someone off. You just need to slow down. If someone is pushing for fast intimacy, you have permission to match their speed to your comfort, not theirs. If someone is asking personal questions you're not ready to answer, you have permission to deflect without explanation. If someone is testing a boundary, you have permission to enforce it without softening the enforcement with an apology. This isn't about being cold. It's about letting your system run its scan without interference. Third protocol, exit rehearsal. One reason people override their instincts is because they don't have a clear exit path. They can feel something's wrong, but they don't know how to leave without creating conflict. So practice, not in your head. Out loud. I appreciate the conversation, but I'm going to step away. This doesn't feel like the right fit for me. I'm not comfortable continuing this. No explanation, no apology, no invitation to debate, just a clean boundary. Rehearse it until it feels automatic. Because in the moment, when someone is challenging your perception or making you feel unreasonable, you won't have the bandwidth to construct a new sentence. You'll need one that's already loaded. Fourth protocol, social debriefing. Your detection system gets stronger when you compare notes. After meeting someone new, talk to a trusted friend. Not to gossip, but to cross-reference. Did you notice how they interrupted every time someone else started talking? Did it feel like they were asking questions or conducting an interview? Sometimes you'll find your instinct was off. That's useful data. But more often, you'll find someone else notice the same dissonance. And that external confirmation recalibrates your trust in your own system. You're not imagining it. You're detecting it. Here's the warning no one gives you. When you start honoring your detection system again, you're going to feel paranoid. You're going to second guess yourself. You're going to worry you're being unfair. That's normal. You've spent years suppressing this signal. Your nervous system doesn't trust that you're finally listening. So it's going to test you. It's going to send louder signals than necessary. It's going to flag people who are probably fine. That's not a malfunction. That's recalibration. Think of it like a smoke detector that's been turned off for years. When you turn it back on, it's going to be hypersensitive for a while. That's not a reason to turn it off again. It's a reason to let it adjust. Over time, your system will regulate. You'll learn to distinguish between early discomfort that's about them and early discomfort that's about you, between a legitimate signal and residual hypervigilance. But that calibration only happens if you stop overriding the signal entirely. If you keep silencing it, it never learns to modulate. It just stays suppressed. Or it gets louder and louder until it becomes indistinguishable from anxiety. The goal isn't to become suspicious of everyone. It's to become fluent in your own nervous system's language. To hear the signal without letting it become static. Here's what this looks like in practice. You meet someone new. Within the first few minutes, you notice a subtle pull to prove you're reasonable. Your shoulders tense slightly. They're asking questions, but the questions feel more like an intake form than a conversation. You don't panic. You don't cut them off. You just slow down. You answer their questions, but you don't volunteer extra information. You ask your own questions and notice whether they deflect or engage. You don't make a final judgment. You just gather more data. And if the signal gets louder, you trust it. You don't need to explain why you're stepping back. You don't need their approval to protect your bandwidth. You just create distance. Clean, calm, non-negotiable distance. What you're learning is that your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's a context-dependent strength. In environments that value transparency, reciprocity, and mutual respect, your detection system helps you find your people faster. It filters out surface, level charm and scans for substance. In environments that reward performance, manipulation, and extraction, your system flags threats early. It keeps you from investing in people who see you as a resource rather than a person. The trait that made you feel broken in the wrong contexts is the same trait that makes you invaluable in the right ones. You don't need to fix it. You need to stop apologizing for it. So here's the internal script. When you feel that early signal, when your chest tightens and you start to second guess yourself, pause and say this. I'm not imagining this. I'm detecting it. My system is built to notice what others filter out. I don't need certainty to slow down. I don't need proof to protect my peace. I'm allowed to trust the signal without waiting for the damage. This isn't paranoia. This is pattern recognition. And I'm finally giving myself permission to act on what I've always known. If this resonated with you, I've put together a free guide on interpreting your nervous system's early warning signals. It's not a diagnostic tool, just a framework for understanding what you're feeling and why. You'll find the link in the description. And if you want to go deeper into how to build relationships that match your sensitivity rather than punish it, the next video breaks down the exact conversational patterns that reveal whether someone is connecting with you or just mirroring you. It's a different lens on the same question, and it might change the way you see every interaction from here forward.